There is a financial weapon being used against you every single day. It is designed to extract your future income, compress your options, and keep you working longer than you ever intended. Most people call it debt, and they've been taught one rule about it their entire lives: avoid it at all costs. Pay it off. Get rid of it. Never use it. That advice sounds responsible, sounds safe, sounds like wisdom. But here is what nobody tells you. While you've been taught to fear debt, there is an entire class of people using the exact same financial instrument to build empires, buy time, and multiply wealth at a speed that would be impossible with cash alone. Same tool, completely opposite outcome. And the difference between those two realities is not luck, it is not access, it is not even money, it is understanding. Because debt is not good or bad, debt is a lever. And levers amplify force in whichever direction you point them. Point it the wrong way and it crushes you slowly, predictably, silently. Point it the right way and it becomes one of the most powerful tools for building wealth that has ever existed. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly how the wealthy use debt as a strategy, not a mistake. And, more importantly, you are going to see how the system has deliberately kept you on the wrong side of that knowledge. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Johnny, and this is where we dismantle the financial systems that profit from your confusion. No theory, no fluff, just the mechanics of how money actually works when nobody is trying to sell you something. Let me start with a story that changed how I see debt forever. A few years ago, I sat down with someone who owned multiple properties, ran 2 businesses, and had what most people would call serious wealth. I expected them to tell me they paid cash for everything, that they avoided debt like poison, that they lived below their means and saved their way to success. Instead, they said something that made no sense to me at the time. I never pay off my mortgages early. In fact, I try to keep as much low-interest debt as I can as long as possible. I must have looked confused because they smiled and said, "Debt is only dangerous when it is expensive and used to buy things that lose value. But when it is cheap and used to acquire things that grow, it's not a burden, it's leverage. And leverage is how you build wealth faster than your income alone would ever allow." That sentence unlocked something I've been blind to my entire life. I realized that all the financial advice I'd ever heard about debt came from one perspective, the perspective of someone trying to survive it, not someone trying to use it. And that's the gap we're closing today. The 2 types of debt nobody taught you. Here's the framework that changes everything. There are only 2 kinds of debt: consuming debt and producing debt. Consuming debt is what most people drown in. It's the credit card balance from dinners you barely remember, the car loan on a vehicle that loses value the second you drive it off the lot, a personal loan for a vacation, the financing plan for furniture, electronics, a lifestyle upgrade you convinced yourself you deserved. This debt does one thing: it pulls future income into the present so you can consume now and pay later. And every month it costs you interest, payments, stress, shrinking options. This is the debt the system wants you to have because it turns you into a reliable profit center. You work, you pay, you stay busy, you stay dependent. Consuming debt doesn't build anything, it extracts. Now let me show you the other side. Producing debt is debt used to acquire something that generates value, income, or appreciation over time. A mortgage on a rental property that tenants pay down while the asset appreciates. A business loan that funds infrastructure which increases revenue. A line of credit used to purchase inventory that sells at a margin. Financing that lets you acquire an asset at a price lower than what it will produce in returns. This kind of debt doesn't drain you, it works for you. And here's the critical distinction most people miss. Wealthy people don't avoid debt, they avoid consuming debt. But they actively use producing debt because they understand something foundational. If you can borrow money at 4% and invest it into something that returns 10%, you just made 6% on someone else's money. That's not reckless, that's math. And the system doesn't want you doing that math. It wants you using debt to buy things that disappear while paying interest that never stops. The debt they want you to have versus the debt they use. Let me make this painfully concrete. Meet someone I'll call Jason. Jason earns $75,000 a year. He has $22,000 in credit card debt at an average interest rate of 19%. He also has a car loan for $30,000 at 6%, and the car is now maybe $23,000. Every month, Jason sends roughly $950 towards debt payments. Almost none of it builds anything, it's pure cost. And because his debt sits on depreciating or consumable things, he's running in place financially. Jason feels trapped, and he should, because the debt he has is designed to trap. Now meet someone I'll call Elena. Elena earns $80,000 a year. She has a mortgage on a duplex, she lives in one unit, she rents out the other. The rent from her tenant covers 70% of her mortgage payment. Elena also took a small business loan to buy equipment for a side consulting business. That equipment lets her serve clients she couldn't serve before, and the additional revenue pays the loan and adds to her income. Elena has more total debt than Jason, but her debt is working. Jason's debt costs him $950 a month and builds nothing. Elena's debt costs her maybe $400 out of pocket after rental income and business revenue, and it's building equity, appreciation, and income. Same tool, completely opposite outcome. And the difference between those two realities is not luck, it is not access, it is not even money, it is understanding. Because debt is not good or bad, debt is a lever. Now, if you are still here, this next part is where we go deeper, because understanding the difference is not enough. You need to know the exact rules the wealthy follow when they use debt strategically. These are not tricks, these are principles, and if you apply them, debt stops being something that controls you and starts being something you control. Rule 1. Never borrow to consume unless you can pay it in full immediately. If you are financing a vacation, a wedding, a car you do not need, furniture, or anything that does not produce income or appreciate, you are using the wrong kind of debt. The only exception is if you could write a check for the full amount right now, but choose to finance at 0% or near zero rates while your cash works elsewhere. Otherwise, consuming debt is financial poison in slow motion. Rule 2. Only use debt when the asset produces more than the cost. This is the central rule. If you borrow at 5%, the thing you buy with that borrowed money must reliably produce or appreciate at a rate higher than 5%, ideally significantly higher to account for risk. This is how real estate investors operate. This is how business owners scale. This is how wealth is compounded at speed. They are not avoiding debt, they're using it as a multiplier on assets that work. Rule 3. Understand the difference between good terms and bad terms. Not all debt is created equal, even within the same category. A mortgage at 3.5% fixed over 30 years is radically different from a credit card at 22% variable. A business loan at 7% that funds revenue-generating infrastructure is different from a payday loan at 400% APR. Wealthy people obsess over terms, interest rate, length, fixed versus variable, prepayment penalties, collateral requirements, because terms determine whether the debt is a tool or a trap. Rule 4. Debt must never exceed your ability to service it from existing cash flow or liquid reserves. This is the safety principle. Even if you are using debt strategically, if one missed payment, one delayed client, one bad month collapses your entire structure, your debt is too aggressive. Leverage is powerful. Over-leverage is fatal. The difference is whether you have margin. Wealthy people using debt strategically always keep liquidity, cash reserves, lines of credit they are not using, multiple income sources, because they know leverage works until it does not, and the people who survive volatility are the ones who built cushion into the system. Rule 5. Debt should accelerate a plan, not replace one. This is the psychological rule, and it is the one most people violate. Debt is not a strategy. Debt is a tool inside a strategy. If your plan is take out a loan and figure it out later, you're gambling. But if your plan is acquire this asset, generate this return, service this debt from this income, and build equity over this timeline, and the debt simply lets you execute faster, that is strategic. The difference is clarity. Wealthy people do not borrow hoping it works out. They borrow knowing exactly how it will work because they built the model first. Now, let me show you what this looks like in practice, a real example of strategic debt. Let me walk you through a scenario that actually happens every day among people building wealth quietly. Suppose you find a small rental property listed at $180,000. The market rent for that property is $1,500 a month. You secure a mortgage at 4.5% with a 20% down payment. Your down payment is $36,000. Your loan amount is $144,000. Your monthly mortgage payment is roughly $730. Add property taxes, insurance, and maintenance reserve, and your total monthly cost is around $1,100. Your tenant pays $1,500. You are cash positive $400 a month. Now, here's what just happened. You used $36,000 of your own money. You borrowed $144,000. That $144,000 is being paid down by your tenant, not by you. Over time, the property appreciates. Your tenant builds your equity. You get tax deductions, and you're collecting positive cash flow. You just use debt to acquire an asset that someone else is paying for while it grows in value. That's not risky, that's systematic. And the reason most people never do this is not because they can't. It's because they've been programmed to think all debt is bad. So let's bring this home. If you have been carrying around the belief that debt is always the enemy, I need you to let that go right now. Debt is not the enemy. Expensive, unproductive debt is the enemy. Debt used to consume is a trap. Debt used to build is a lever. And here's the truth that might sting. The system profits massively when you use debt the wrong way. Credit card companies, auto lenders, payday loan operations, any institution that lends to you for consumption at high rates. They do not want you to understand leverage. They want you to fear all debt equally, so you never learn to use it strategically. Because the moment you understand how to borrow cheaply and deploy it into assets that produce, you stop being a customer and start becoming a competitor. That is the shift. So here's your action plan. Step 1. Audit every dollar of debt you currently have. List it. Write down the balance, the interest rate, what it was used for. Then ask, is this debt working for me or am I working for it? Step 2. Eliminate consuming debt as aggressively as possible. High-interest credit cards, car loans on depreciating vehicles, personal loans for things that are gone. Kill it. Not because debt is evil, but because bad debt is expensive and it destroys your ability to use good debt. Step 3. Build your financial foundation before using leverage. Do not borrow strategically until you have an emergency fund, stable income, a plan for what the debt will fund, the ability to service the debt even if things go sideways. Leverage without foundation is just gambling with extra steps. Step 4. Start small. You do not need to buy a 10-unit apartment building. Maybe it's a small business loan for equipment. Maybe it's a mortgage on a house hack. Maybe it's a line of credit you secure but do not use until the right opportunity appears. The point is to start learning how to use debt as a tool, not a crutch. And step 5, educate yourself relentlessly. Read, study, learn how real estate investors structure deals, learn how business owners use financing. Learn the language of terms, rates, leverage ratios, and cash flow, because the more you understand, the more you control. If this video just flipped your entire understanding of debt, I need you to do 3 things right now. First, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this channel is where we break down the financial systems the wealthy use while everyone else stays confused. The next video could be the one that changes your financial trajectory permanently. Second, smash the like button, because that single click determines whether this message reaches someone who desperately needs to hear it. Third, share this with someone stuck in bad debt who thinks all debt is the same. You could be the reason they finally see the difference between a trap and a tool. Now, I want to hear from you. What is one piece of consuming debt you are carrying right now that you know you need to eliminate? And here's the bigger question. If you could use debt strategically, what is the first asset or opportunity you would go after? Drop your answers below. I'm Johnny.
I read every comment, and some of the best insights come from these conversations. Let's build wealth strategically. I'll see you in the next one.